Christmas movies are everywhere. They're a dime a dozen these days. Of course, there are plenty that have been made for adults, and then tons made for children. And today I figured I would go ahead and rank them in the spirit of the holiday being a couple days away and just share with you some of my favorites and my thoughts on them. And I love children's ones like the Mickey Mouse ones, but you won't see any of those. And you definitely will not see any of these. Anyway, coming up next. First, I want to say thank you to anybody who's watched my Beatles Get Back review. Easily my most viewed video since I started this channel. Certainly appreciate it, as well as all the new subscribers. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, and share it with your friends. So I love the classic Christmas movies. Holiday Inn, great dialogue, great songs. Old Age Hollywood, and White Christmas, great song and dance in that one as well. And Meet Me in St. Louis as well, Judy Garland singing Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. Great respect for the old classics, so honorable mention for those as well, and Miracle on 34th Street. Gremlins, timeless classic from my childhood. Scared the bejesus out of me, still love it, still get a big kick out of the darker vision of Christmas. And it'll always be one of the ones that I watch at least every few years, if not every year. And then same thing goes for Edward Scissorhands. People often forget this is a Christmas movie, but it certainly is. It's beautiful, it's dark, it's great social commentary. Johnny Depp is brilliant, and it's when I fell in love with Winona Ryder for the first time. Always love it. Tim Burton's fantastic. The Family Man hits a certain chord. It's kind of a new age. It's a Wonderful Life. Nicolas Cage gives a great performance, and Téa Leoni is absolutely just so magnetic, so engaging throughout the whole film. If you've never seen that one, definitely give it a watch as well. Love Actually, that's one that I liked a lot more when I first watched it. It's kind of faded on me the more I've watched it over the years. There's a certain nastiness to it. Maybe it's just the British, being the British, I don't know, but the longer it goes on, the less I appreciate it, but I still have a place in my heart for it. Elf, well, my 5-year-old just got really, really into it last year and this year, so it's grown back on me. It's a little ridiculous, a little cheesy, of course. It's Will Ferrell, as over the top as it gets, but it's got an infectious joy that you can't help but love, and it can't help but rub off on you. And finally, Scrooged. This was kind of the oddball favorite when I was a kid. I remember watching it on cable, being a little freaked out by it, not quite understanding it, but loving its spirit, and then, of course, the fantastic Bill Murray performance, especially at the end when he gives the impassioned speech. And now, let's get to the actual top 5. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Oh, what a classic. Chevy Chase taking that Clark Griswold persona to its peak, in my opinion, here. It's goofy, it's corny, it's silly, but it's also very charming. It has some of the best witty dialogue sequences ever, as well as just some fantastic over-the-top humor. Chevy Chase's performance, especially once the party gets more and more bananas, you can't help but love it. People quote it every single year, whether it's Eddie doing his shitters full thing, or it's both of Clark's speeches about the time that Bing Crosby danced with Danny fucking Kaye. Everything about it is fantastic. The crazed look in his eyes, but it's also got some heart as well. You can feel his longing for that pool in the backyard, and of course I really love the scene when he gets stuck up in the attic and is watching the old family videos of Christmases from his youth, with Ray Charles playing on the soundtrack. Zanier bits like the squirrel in the tree and the cat, everything about those is silly, classic, zany National Lampoon's comedy. But the film itself is always going to be known mainly for its characters, the interaction, the in-laws, very young Juliette Lewis with her sardonic delivery, and Beverly D'Angelo being the ever-present devoted wife, trying to do her best, and Randy Quaid stealing every scene he's in, playing Cousin Eddie, an immortal character. And, of course, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, who would go on to be on Seinfeld. This is in between Saturday Night Live and Seinfeld. Great performance as a pretentious neighbor that Clark tortures. All right, number 4, A Christmas Story. Everybody from my generation loves A Christmas Story because we came of age at a time when they started showing this more and more and more on cable every year on TNT and TBS until finally it culminated in them doing a 24-hour marathon every year, starting on Christmas Eve, ending on Christmas, where they show Christmas Story back to back to back consecutively for 24 hours. And this movie is just what a charming piece of Americana, classic American cinema. It's got too many memorable scenes to count. And it's amazing to me that it's based on stories of a guy who grew up in the 40s and 50s. And then the film was released in 1983, the year I was born. And yet, even though it's an 80s film based on the 40s, it still has such resonance and still lands with laughs all the way till today. You got people of all generations still quoting it. You'll shoot your eye out every single year. You'll hear every single moment of that film. People have an appreciation for it. And they're really little vignettes. There isn't much of a plot besides he wants the darn BB gun and he gets it at the end. Spoiler alert. But really, there's not much more to it than that. The rest of it's just little snapshots of what it was like being a kid in Indiana in that era and what it was like at Christmas time and the magic and the wonder, but also the reality of grumpy dad coming home from work and mom's trying to keep it together and getting your mouth washed out with soap, of course, for using the dirtiest word of them all, and being tortured by things like having to wear the buddy suit I forget if it's his aunt or his grandma, but somebody gets him the bunny suit, having to wear that as a Christmas gift. And just so much charm, so much life and energy, and so much fantastic humor. And it really is a perennial classic. I have to throw it on at some point when it's marathoning on TV every year, even if it's just to watch 15 minutes, because every section has so much that I can grab, so much detail and character work. It's just fantastic. And I had to put in, with all these stills I'm showing you, I had to put in my favorite shot of the film, which is a little moment, very small. It's when he reaches up and grabs the major award and just wants to touch that leg. And his mom slaps his hand away. Oh, it's just hilarious to me. That's one of those little blink and you'll miss it moments that I love so much about classic films. All right, so let's get into number 3, Home Alone. Now, this is really of my generation. This film came out in 1990 when I was 7 years old. And of course, in the film, Kevin McAllister is 8 years old. So nothing could be more relatable than being this kid in this era and having this ability to live the ultimate dream, which is being a kid free from all responsibility, free from having to be told what to do, free from his big brother picking on him, free from his parents ordering him around, and ultimately doing it at the most fun time of year, and not being scolded for eating all that ice cream while watching The Grinch. So then, of course, that's the main part of it, and then the big culmination of the film is Marv and Harry, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, of course, robbing all the houses in the neighborhood, and Kevin defending his home against them, and setting up a bunch of traps that would certainly kill a real human being in real life. So it turns into a cartoon, live action cartoon by the time you get to the third act. But hey, when I was 7 and 8 years old, who cares? I still love it today. My daughter loves it now. I remember my buddy and I marathoning this movie at Christmas time when we were, 8, 9, 10 years old. There was one day where, if my memory serves me correctly, we watched it 6 or 7 times in a row. It never got old. It's still an all-time classic. It's got a wonderful little bit part by John Candy. It's got Catherine O'Hara, who's an absolute American treasure. And it's just marvelous in all ways, shapes, and forms. And, fun fact, it still blows my mind, so I have to note this. Joe Pesci, he did this and Goodfellas months apart. in 1989 and 1990. It's hard to believe that those two films came out in the same year, mere months apart. I think they came out 3 or 4 months away from each other. It's crazy. And I mean, this film is so iconic. Look at that house. That house people go to. Two of my close friends just went to it recently. People do pilgrimages there because it's such a famous, iconic, cinematic home. So, and if you ever want to look up the price tag on it, that'll blow your mind by itself. But always near and dear and close to my heart, Home Alone. Oh, and don't forget Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof. And Old Man Marley, and it also has, of course, a ton of heart as well, in addition to all the charm and ridiculous humor and cartoon violence in the last part of it. Number 2, Die Hard. Bruce Willis at his absolute peak, and one of the greatest films ever made, possibly the greatest action film ever made, and yes, in my opinion, my second favorite Christmas film ever made. And of course, this has been a hotbed topic for the last, 5 years or so, where people debate every year whether Die Hard technically is a Christmas movie or not. And I don't understand this, just because it's not family based, maybe, but even though it is family based, but it's not warm and fuzzy, and it's not romantic comedy or based around a child, and it's very violent, and it's very vulgar, full of F-bombs, and it has villains and the whole thing. Maybe that's why, but it's set at a Christmas party on Christmas Eve. It has Christmas music throughout. Christmas decorations are everywhere. And of course, you have things like Now I Have a Machine Gun, Ho Ho Ho, with the guy with the Santa hat on, and the whole climax of the film. He uses what? He uses Christmas packing tape to tape that gun to his back. The score has a bunch of little bells and little Christmas cues in it. Everything about it is very much Christmas-based, so that debate should just stop. But everything about this is brilliant. Like I said, Bruce Willis at his absolute peak. Alan Rickman, what a genius. He was absolutely brilliant. This is his first major film that introduced him to the American audiences. And, now he's become a meme where it's not Christmas until you drop the Hans. So I'll definitely be taking that one in this weekend. I highly recommend it. If you've never seen it and you think what could be so great about it, well, if you want to see a perfect action film that also gives you the warm and fuzzy Christmas feeling, that's your movie right there. Die Hard is an ultimate classic film. Will go down in history. And if not for the number one, my number one on this list, I think it would automatically be my favorite Christmas film. Hence, it's here in the second spot. And, I grew up watching this with my brother, and we never got tired of it. It's another one that we marathoned. I've seen Die Hard probably 50 times in my life. Never gets old. I can quote you the whole thing. And I love everything about it. And I'm excited to watch it already this year. And if we didn't have Die Hard, we would have never heard the immortal phrase, yippee-ki-yay, mother. All right, I'll keep it family friendly. This is a video about Christmas films. But go watch it if you've never seen it, like I said. All right, here we go. Number 1, It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. Frank Capra's immortal classic, starring James Stewart and Donna Reed, or Jimmy Stewart, as I prefer to call him. Andrew Barrymore's grandfather, Lionel Barrymore. This movie is probably in my top 5 all-time favorite films, let alone my number 1 favorite Christmas movie. I think some people who've never seen this prejudge it as being some kind of treacly, lighthearted affair, old-fashioned Hollywood, and, super light and breezy, and they don't realize this is a deep, often very dark, and ultimately redeeming, beautiful, beautiful film. And if you've ever been at a point in your life where you were in a place of desperation, despair, hopelessness, perhaps even suicidal, like George Bailey becomes in the film, this is a film that will resonate with you. I first watched this, I believe, in my early teens, and it was a very, very rough time in my life, and my whole adolescence was very troubled, and I was suicidal at times. And I remember watching this film, and it hit me in some of the deepest of ways. Brought out a lot of those emotions and helped me relate to finding gratitude for my life as opposed to giving up on myself. So it's a work of art that I hold very, very dearly, and I treasure it. It's my favorite holiday tradition to watch this Christmas Eve after I get home from family celebration, after my daughter goes to bed. It is, to me, the most reflective, and by the end of the film, it's the most joyful way to spend the holiday, reminding us of what matters, which is our family, our friends, the love that we can give, the love we can allow ourselves to receive, and the joy that we share with those around us by being open to their love. There are very few stories in the history of mankind that resonate like George Bailey's. And it's also got its old Hollywood charm. It's got a certain twinkle in its eye, but it's really Stewart's performance. Donna Reed as well, but Stewart's performance is what carries it. He really makes you love this guy. You fall in love with him instantly, and you watch not just that Christmas part of the story, but his entire life story, and you come to know the man and feel like he's part of your own family, and you come to embrace his journey and root so hard for him. Jimmy Stewart's just so easy to root for and care about and love and appreciate. And by the time he gets to that fateful night where Clarence takes him to an alternate reality where he was never born, it's impossible not to take that and reflect on your own life and the impact that you've had on people, even when you feel your most worthless, that your existence, your very being on this planet benefited another human being in some kind of profound way. Think about the people you love and how much their existence did that for you. And just remember, that's why it's called It's a Wonderful Life, because of how people are there for other people. And at times of great despair and great hopelessness, just remember, this is why we're here, and this is why we celebrate holidays together. If you haven't already, please do like this video. It helps a lot against the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed. Please comment below. Tell me your list. What's your top 5? I want to hear all about it. And here's a little nod from the first and last on this list there. I don't know if you ever caught that before. Merry Christmas.